Somewhere ahead of me, down inside a gorge 200 feet deep, there is a waterfall that spent most of the last century hidden underneath a dam. For decades, people drove past this valley and never knew one of the finest cascades in the Midwest was buried here. Then in 1992, crews pulled the dam out, and Willow Falls came roaring back into the daylight. Today we are hiking to see it. This is Willow River State Park in western Wisconsin, and this is the story of a river that got its falls back. We are in St. Croix County, in the far west of Wisconsin, just 5 miles north of the river town of Hudson. The Minnesota border and the whole Twin Cities metro sit only a short drive to the west across the St. Croix River. The park itself covers nearly 2,900 acres of rolling countryside, woods, and prairie remnants. Through the middle of it runs the Willow River, cutting a deep rocky trench on its way down to the St. Croix. That closeness to the cities matters, because this has become one of the most visited state parks in all of Wisconsin. It is a warm Sunday at the end of August, just past noon, and the trail starts easy, wide and shaded under a full late summer canopy. The plan is simple. Follow the trails down toward the gorge, stand under the falls, climb the stairway to the overlooks, and loop back through the woods above the river. The air is thick with that end-of-summer hum, crickets and birdsong, and the first hints of the season turning. Underfoot the path is packed gravel and dirt, gentle at first. It will not stay gentle, because everything good in this park sits at the bottom of a very big hole. The river we are following gave its name to the town downstream before that town was even called Hudson. Settlers arrived at the mouth of the Willow River in 1840, and the little settlement that grew there was known first as Willow River, and then for a while as Buena Vista. In 1852, a New Yorker named Alfred Gray, the city's first mayor, renamed it Hudson because the bluffs along the St. Croix reminded him of the Hudson River back home. The town grew into a busy river port of steamboats, sawmills, and later a toll bridge across to Minnesota. The name Willow River lives on up here, in the valley where the water still does the talking. The Willow River is a little over 61 miles long. It rises in southern Polk County, near the village of Clear Lake, and wanders southwest through farm country, through New Richmond and Boardman and Burkhardt, before it reaches this park near the very end of its run. By the time it gets here, it has gathered enough water and enough energy to carve through solid rock. In its final miles, it drops through the gorge in front of us and empties into Lake Mallowview and the St. Croix at Hudson. For such a modest stream, it has had an outsized history, and most of that history happened right where we are walking. The trail rolls along through oak and maple, and every so often the ground falls away to the right, a hint of the valley waiting below. What strikes you first about this park is how quickly it changes character. One minute you are on a flat, almost lazy woodland path, the next you are staring down into a canyon. Late August is a fine time for it. The mosquitoes have eased off, the light through the leaves has gone golden, and down below, out of sight but not out of earshot, the river is starting to make itself known. To understand the gorge, you have to go back an almost absurd distance in time. Hundreds of millions of years ago, this part of North America lay under a shallow tropical sea. Generation after generation of marine life lived and died in that warm water, and their remains, along with lime muds and sands, settled to the bottom in layer after layer. Those layers slowly hardened into the limestone and dolomite that now form the walls of the Willow River Gorge. Everything we are about to walk through was once a sea floor. The proof is written right into the rock. In the lower layers of the gorge, hikers and geologists have found trilobite fossils, the armored, many-legged sea creatures that scuttled across ocean floors more than 500 million years ago, long before dinosaurs, long before trees, long before anything walked on land. Their presence dates these rocks to some of the deepest chapters of Earth's story. So as the trail drops toward the river, we are effectively descending through time. Every foot down the gorge wall is another few million years into the past. Now the trail tips downhill in earnest and the sound changes. That soft background murmur has grown into a genuine rush, somewhere below and ahead through the trees. The descent to Willow Falls is famously steep, a knee-testing drop that every visitor remembers on the climb back out. The path switches down through the woods, and glimpses of pale rock start to appear between the trunks. Then the trees open, and the bottom of the gorge comes into view. The Willow River Gorge is the park's great set piece, a rock-walled trench up to 200 feet deep, cut by the river through those ancient layers of limestone and dolomite. Cliffs rise in stacked, weathered bands, streaked with moss and stained with seeping water, with cedars and ferns clinging wherever a root can find a crack. Water did all of this patiently, exploiting every weakness in the stone since the glaciers released it. It is the kind of landscape you expect in the mountains, not tucked into the farm country of western Wisconsin. And at the head of it stands the reason everyone comes. And there it is. Willow Falls, pouring over its ledges at the head of the gorge, white water spread wide across dark rock. Even in late August, when rivers run low, it comes down with real authority, filling the canyon with sound and cool spray. People are scattered across the rocks below it, wading in the pools, and you can walk right to the base of the cascade. It is one of those places that stops you mid-step. And for most of the 20th century, none of this was visible at all. Willow Falls is not a single sheer plunge, but a broad, tiered cascade, roughly 45 feet tall and about 100 feet wide, stepping down over ledge after ledge of resistant rock. The river fans out across the tiers, splitting into braids and chutes, so the face of the falls changes with every change in water level. Each ledge is a harder layer of that old sea floor, each notch a softer one the river has picked apart. It is the geology lesson from earlier performed live. In spring, flood it thunders, and on a summer afternoon like this it sparkles. Down at the bottom, a footbridge crosses the river just below the cascade, and it is the best seat in the house. From the middle of the bridge you get the whole show, the tiers stacked above you, the gorge walls framing everything, the pools glittering downstream. On a hot day, the mist coming off the rock is its own reward. It feels timeless, but this exact scene, falls, pools, free-flowing river, is younger than many of the people standing in it. To understand that, we need to meet a German miller. In 1868, a miller named Christian Burkhardt built a grist mill on the Willow River, using the drop of the falls to grind the wheat pouring in from the new farms of St. Croix County. Burkhardt was ambitious and technically minded, and he understood earlier than most what falling water could really be worth. His mill prospered, and the little community upstream took his name, the village of Burkhardt, which the river still flows through today. But grinding flour was only the beginning. As the century turned, Burkhardt saw a new use for his river: electricity. Over the following decades, Burkhardt and his company harnessed the Willow River almost from end to end, eventually building 4 dams and 4 power plants along its lower reaches. The waterfall we just stood under was drowned behind one of them, its ledges submerged, its gorge turned into a mill pond. The river that had spent thousands of years carving this canyon now spun turbines and lit farmhouses and street lamps across the county. It was, by the standards of its day, a triumph of progress. And it completely erased Willow Falls from living memory. From the bridge, a long wooden stairway climbs the gorge wall toward the overlooks, well over 100 steps of honest work. It is the price of the view, and everyone pays it slowly, in stages, with pauses that are officially for photography and unofficially for breathing. As you climb, the falls drop away below and the whole shape of the canyon reveals itself. The higher you get, the more you appreciate what the river has accomplished here. Keep climbing, the top is worth it. The Burkhardt operation eventually passed to bigger hands. In 1945, Northern States Power purchased the company and ran the river's plants until 1963, when small rural hydro finally stopped making economic sense. The Willow even made legal history along the way, in a 1940s Supreme Court case, United States versus Willow River Power Company, that helped define who actually owns the value of flowing water in America. Think about that for a moment. This quiet Wisconsin trout stream was argued over in the highest court in the land. When the turbines finally stopped, the question became what to do with a used-up river valley. From the overlook at the top of the stairs, the gorge spreads out below in full, the falls a white seam in the green, the river winding away between the walls. This is one of the great viewpoints in any Wisconsin state park, and it earns every step of that stairway. You can trace the layers in the far wall, the same stacked sea floors we talked about, running level as bookshelves. Hawks ride the updrafts over the canyon. It is a view that very nearly ended up as just another reservoir. Wisconsin's answer came in 1967, when the state established Willow River State Park on the retired power company lands, opening it to the public in 1971. Notice the dates. This is not one of those parks built by Depression-era crews in the 1930s. There are no civilian conservation corps lodges or hand-laid stone shelters here. It is a post-war park born of the automobile age, created for the weekend families of a booming Twin Cities region just across the river. The old workhorse river was about to get a second career as scenery. Back on the trail, following the rim of the valley through deep woods. This stretch is quieter. The crowds thin out fast once you're past the falls, and the park shows its other face. Big trees, birdsong, the river glinting far below through the leaves. Deer are common in these woods, and the park is home to everything from foxes to pileated woodpeckers. Nearly 2,900 acres gives wildlife real room. It is easy hiking now, and a good place to tell the next part of the story, because this is where the river got interesting again. By the early 1990s, the old dam sitting on top of Willow Falls was aging, useless for power, and standing between the park and its own best feature. So in 1992, the state took it out. As the impoundment drained, something remarkable emerged from beneath decades of still water, the tiered cascade of Willow Falls, intact, patient, entirely undamaged by its long burial. A waterfall that no living visitor had ever seen simply returned. A few years later, the Mound's dam upstream came out as well, and the lower Willow River ran free for the first time in a century. The dam removals restored about 4 miles of trout stream habitat, and the cold, clean Willow responded quickly. Today the river holds both stocked trout and naturally reproducing fish, with rainbow and brook trout planted each spring at points along its length, and anglers work the riffles and pools all season. Removing those dams also let the river run colder and cleaner, since shallow impoundments warm the water that trout depend on. What was once a chain of mill ponds is now one of the better trout waters in this corner of Wisconsin. The falls got the headlines, but the fish may have gotten the better deal. Down along the riverbank now, where the water slides by clear and quick over gravel. People have been drawn to this valley for a very long time. Santee, Dakota and Ojibwe people lived and traveled through this region for generations before any mill was built, and European explorers passing through recorded their presence here as far back as 1795. Then came the millers, the power company, and finally the park. Stand here long enough and you can feel all those layers stacked up, like the rock in the gorge walls. The river outlasted every one of them. One dam on the river survived the era of removals, the Little Falls Dam, here inside the park, first built in 1892. It backed up the river into Little Falls Lake, the park's swimming and paddling lake, ringed with picnic lawns and a beach. Generations of families learned to swim behind that aging structure. But by 2015, state inspectors had bad news. The old dam lacked the spillway capacity to safely pass a major flood, and there were real safety concerns about the structure itself. The park was about to lose its lake. In In June of 2015, the state began a complete drawdown of Little Falls Lake, and that fall the old dam was intentionally breached. Where water had glittered for more than a century, there was suddenly a valley of mudflats, with the Willow River winding through the middle in its original channel. For 5 summers, visitors looked out from the beach at a lake that simply was not there, grasses and willows colonizing the exposed lakebed. It was a strange, in-between time for the park. But this time, unlike at Willow Falls, the plan was to build back. The trail climbs away from the water again, through stands of oak and pine, the afternoon sun strobing through the canopy. Late August is the turning point of the Wisconsin year, goldenrod along the trail edges, the first blushes of color in the sumac. This park rewards a slow pace. There are more than a dozen miles of trail here, from gorge edge scrambles to easy prairie loops. Somewhere off to the side, a woodpecker is working a dead snag. We have one more story to finish, and it is a story with a happy ending. Wisconsin chose to rebuild. A new Little Falls Dam was designed and approved at a cost of about $19 million, a 26-foot high concrete structure engineered to pass even a 1,000-year flood, with a cold water outlet designed to protect the trout fishery downstream. Construction wrapped up over the winter of 2019 into 2020, and the refill began in the spring of 2020. By the following year, Little Falls Lake was back, and swimmers and paddlers returned to water that had been mudflats a few seasons before. A park that had once unbuilt dams to free A Waterfall had now built one, carefully, to give back a lake. The Gorge has one more constituency: climbers. The Dolomite walls near Willow Falls hold established rock climbing routes ranging from moderate lines around 5'9" all the way up to an elite 5'14", which puts this modest Wisconsin canyon on the radar of serious climbers across the Midwest. On summer weekends, you can watch them working the overhangs while hikers picnic below. The same hard, layered rock that makes the falls step down in tears gives climbers their edges and pockets. 500 million-year-old sea floor, now a climbing gym. Up on the flats above the valley, the park protects another survivor, remnants of native prairie, waving with big bluestem, goldenrod, and late summer wildflowers. Before the plows arrived, openings like this stitched through the oak woods across this whole region, and the park manages and restores these patches today. In August, they hum with bees and monarch butterflies fueling up for migration. A nature center near the campground helps visitors connect the pieces: prairie, forest, gorge, and river. It is a reminder that this park is more than its waterfall. You will not have this place to yourself, and honestly, that is part of the story. Willow River drew more than 686,000 visitors in 2024, ranking it among the most visited state parks in Wisconsin, thanks in large part to the Twin Cities sitting just across the St. Croix. On a summer Saturday, the falls can feel like a festival, so come on a weekday, or early, if you want the gorge to yourself. There are 122 campsites if you want to stay over. Everyone is here for the same reason we are: a waterfall that came back from the dead. The climb out of the valley is the toll every visitor pays on the way home, steady, steep in stretches, and strangely satisfying. Behind us, the sound of the falls fades a little with every switchback, until it is just a whisper under the birdsong. It is worth pausing at the top for one last look back into the gorge, at the white thread of water that spent a century in the dark. Rivers are patient in a way people are not. This one waited out the mills, the turbines, and the mill ponds, and in the end it got its canyon back. So that is Willow River State Park, a 200-foot gorge carved through an ancient sea floor, a 45-foot waterfall that vanished behind a dam and returned in 1992, a lake that disappeared and came back, and a trout stream running free after a century of harness. It is 5 miles from Hudson, half an hour from the Twin Cities, and a world away from both. If you come, bring legs for the stairway and give yourself time at the bottom of the falls. Few places let you watch a landscape being unbuilt and rebuilt within a single lifetime. Thank you for watching. Follow for more of the trails of the world.